Council meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that Councilmember Avery is currently absent, and Mayor Pro Tem Stapleton and Councilmember Kleiman have excused absences.
All right. We're going to start with an invocation from Imam Al-Qazwini from the Islamic Educational Center of Orange County, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Wagon.
Thank you. Respected members of the Newport Beach City Council, good afternoon and greetings of peace. Please join me in this invocation as we open this afternoon's session. O Lord, we pray to you to bless our great city of Newport Beach and its surroundings. O Lord, allow us all to care for each other and help our city grow in happiness and goodness. Our Lord, allow us all to uphold the values of our great nation by maintaining family, peaceful and caring neighborhoods, education, jobs, health care, safety, security, civil rights, and liberties for all people. O Lord, allow us to uphold the spirit of our Pledge of Allegiance, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. O Lord, we pray to you to continue to guide us to establish justice for all people, regardless of their races, colors, or religions. O Lord, bestow upon us wisdom and farsightedness to place the interests of our own country before our own personal interests. O Lord, allow our elected officials to serve the interests of all people and to bring unity, harmony, and prosperity to our nation. Our Lord, bless the United States of America and help this nation to be a shining example of peace, equality, justice, and harmony. Amen. Thank you.
Please join me as we salute our nation's flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We have a couple of presentations today. The first is a proclamation recognizing the Newport Rib Company's 40th anniversary. Anyone from the family or company would like to come up to the microphone, you're welcome to do so. I'm going to read a proclamation, and then we have Assemblymember Diane Dixon, who will also be presenting a proclamation. John, do you want to represent the family?
John, no. John,
Just wait until you see me with my boot on. All right, so first I'm going to read a proclamation. First off, I just want to say thank you for coming in. I know that, first off, I've eaten a lot of your food. And second, I've been so impressed by everything that you've done as a family in Newport Beach and our surrounding areas. So in this year, with the Helper Initiative and recognizing people who have done a lot for our communities, this was an easy one to choose. Whereas the Orsini family has lived in Costa Mesa and Newport Beach since 1966, and whereas Fran, the family patriarch, operated the Surfer Hamburger Stand at 22nd Street and Oceanfront from 1966 to 1977, Patio Cafe at 19th and Balboa Boulevard from 1978 to 1982, and Newport Rib Company since 1984. Fran's daughter and son-in-law, Laura and Jerry Marquin, currently operate 22nd Street Pizza and Pipeline Snack Shop at the Pier. And whereas while Fran instilled a strong work ethic in all of his children, his wife Karen instilled the importance of giving back to the community. And whereas Newport Rib Company's 20th anniversary and every 5 years since, the restaurant donates 20% of all dine-in and carry-out business for 20 days to charity. This fundraiser has raised over $161,000 for local charities. And whereas nearly every local charity's silent auction contains a gift certificate from Newport Rib Company, many sports banquets are catered by Newport Rib Company, and a whole lot of local kids get their first job working for Newport Rib Company. And whereas Newport Rib Company pivoted in 2020 to neighborhood deliveries throughout the Newport Beach, Costa Mesa area, which allowed them to keep all of their staff employed and still earning tips. And whereas Newport Rib Company is celebrating 40 years in business this month, now therefore I, Will O'Neill, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, do hereby recognize and celebrate Newport Rib Company for its 40 years of excellent food, service, and community stewardship. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And then if I could invite Assemblymember Diane Dixon up as well.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I'm honored to be here also to celebrate Newport Rib Company's 40th anniversary. This wonderful family-owned business plays a great role in the history and culture of our community. Founded in 1984 by Fran Ursini and going strong today, run by all three children, John, Dave, and Laura, and their families. Your commitment to giving back to the community is remarkable. Your 20 days of giving with 20% of dine-in and takeout sales to local charities, all in honor of your major anniversaries, and now your 40th, is so commendable. This neighborhood gem is truly a favorite of all of us, residents and visitors alike, and will continue to be a community staple for years to come. With delicious barbecue, a comfortable atmosphere at both restaurants, and with catering and a focus on giving back, it's a privilege to honor Newport Rib Company today. With that, I would like to present a resolution commemorating your Ursini family and Newport Rib Company, and congratulations again on your 40th anniversary. Now let me go get it.
Awesome. So, perfect. So, you hold that for just a second, John, because we're going to take a photo right after you speak. But okay.
I won't
Yeah.
read the
Oh,
whole
no,
thing.
please.
It's like in mouse type here. There's so much to say, but let me just summarize. As the restaurant celebrates its 40th anniversary, it is deserving of special recognition and the highest commendations from the state of California, from the Assembly of the State of California. Family-owned and operated Newport Rib Company was founded in 1984 by Fran Ursini and Rich Pajoyan, who shared a passion for creating the best barbecue restaurant in Orange County. Having outgrown its original location on Newport Boulevard, Newport Rib Company moved to its current location on Harbor Boulevard in 1999, and the Ursini family has built a reputation for providing delicious barbecue meals across Southern California. Over the last 4 decades, Newport Rib Company has given back to the community through contributions to local schools and sports organizations in the form of donations and sponsorships. To mark its 40th anniversary in business, Newport Rib Company donated 20% of all dine-in and takeout sales from October 1st through October 20th, 2024. So on behalf of the State Assembly of the State of California, from your local assembly person, Diane Dixon, I'm proud to honor you and reward you and wish you the best of luck and continued success to the entire family from now on. So here you go. We'll take a picture when we're all finished. Or
Yep. So, John, the mic's yours for now. And
For
and,
just a minute.
yeah, let's give him 60 seconds. I'm just,
I'll only take 30. No, thank you very much. It's, we don't do what we do for any kind of recognition. It's just from us growing up way back in the day, our parents just kind of said, do what's right by people in your community. And it's been kind of a pleasure to be able to do right, I think, by the people in our community. And it's a joy, and it's allowed us to make a family living. It's allowed our family to become closer as well. Our holidays maybe aren't the same holidays that a lot of you have, but it certainly is one of those things that we're very proud of, and we couldn't be more proud. It started with my grandma and grandpa and kind of got passed down to my mom and dad, and hopefully we're doing the same thing for our kids. So thank you very much for taking a moment of your time to talk about Newport Rib Company, and we're sure glad to be in your neck of the woods.
we're happy to have you. So we'd love to get the entire family and Newport Rib Company family over here next to the flags.
A little late.
All right. We're going to move into a legislative update from Assemblymember Diane Dixon. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you all, and it's a pleasure to be back. It's my first time back, I guess, in 2 years, so this is historic. So thank you. It's a pleasure, and good afternoon, Mayor and council members, and thank you for allowing me to update you on what goes on in Sacramento, or at least the last session for the last 2 years. I'll be giving this similar presentation to the other 8 cities in my district, so you're the first one off, and I'm pleased to be updating you. So just to refresh everybody's memory, the legislative session began in technically December of 2022, but we've really convened in January, so it's 2 full years. There's the first half of the session and then the last half of the session. The last half just ended August 31st. So you do not need to take notes, but let me give you some data here. A few numbers that will remind you of what goes on in Sacramento. So your legislature, both the Assembly and the Senate, was busy creating new laws. In the 2-year session, total combined 2 years, 4,821 bills were introduced. The Assembly introduced 3,291, and the Senate 1,530. Of those bills, the governor signed 1,907 bills into law, new laws. This was last year, 2023. And this is pretty typical. He signed about 79 to 80%. His predecessors have done pretty much the same. So of those that were signed, the Assembly bills, he signed 1,200 approximately, and Senate bills about 680. During the just concluded 2024 legislative session, another 2,100 bills were introduced. It never stops. It's a factory of bills. September 30th was the last day of this session, of the 2-year session, and then the governor gets to sign or veto bills that land on his desk. And last September 1st or August 31st at midnight, he gets a delivery of 1,206 bills. Of those 1,200 bills, he signed about 1,000 bills, 1,017, 84%. And this is pretty typical. And of those he signed this year, 668 Assembly bills and 349 Senate. Of the Assembly bills signed, 12% came from the minority house of the House, and that's the Republican lawmakers. So that means 88% from the Democrats. In the Senate, the governor signed off on 9% of Republican-authored measures. So you didn't have to memorize those bills. I'll just give you my opinion. Too many bills, too many laws. Actually, I have 2 quotes from the former Governor Jerry Brown. When he was vetoing, this was in 2016, when he was vetoing a measure, he said, "Not every human problem deserves a law." I actually made that statement on the floor of the legislature when I was advocating the veto of another unnecessary law or bill that would have been made into law. And then he also said, this was a quote I recently found, but I'm going to start using it, quote, "Too many rules, too many constricting mandates, and probably too much spending." I couldn't agree more. And that's former Governor Jerry Brown. I'll be quoting him again on the floor of the Assembly at every opportunity. There just are too many bills. And the consequence is, and I won't get into all this, nobody has time to read all the bills. And by the time they vote, it's questionable whether they read them. If they were in a committee, they may have read them. Fortunately, I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee, and so I see about 90% of 95%. Most every bill costs money, so it goes through appropriations. So I have seen all of these bills in one form or another. And on the Judiciary Committee that I serve, there are a lot of bills that come through Judiciary. And so I see a lot. But a lot of people never read the bills, I'm sorry to say. So some highlights, and now I've condensed this because I know you don't want to do this all night, but I could talk all night, but I won't. So just this week, I'm pleased to tell you that one of the first bills that I authored was a request of the State Auditor's Office to audit how the Department of Health Care Services monitors and regulates recovery homes in California. And it passed unanimously on consent, and now And that was over a year ago in June of 2023. Well, just this week, the audit will be tomorrow, October 24th. I will get a briefing at 9:30 tomorrow morning, and then I have a press conference on Friday morning to talk about my opinions. I do not know what's in it. I have no idea. We got the 2-week heads up that the audit is finished and will be publicly released on October 24th, tomorrow. So we're all in the same place. So what I'm hoping is that we'll get some important data. And from that, I will base many of my legislative proposals and other members. This was a bipartisan, bicameral audit. So was a lot of support to get this audit completed. So I look forward. It won't only be myself that's authoring bills to address the findings. I'm sure it will be again bipartisan and bicameral. So I look forward to working together with my colleagues across the aisle as well. So we'll all be anxious to hear about that tomorrow. Also, another item that made the local news quite extensively, you don't think it really is going to affect Newport Beach, but let me assure you it will. So the Department of Motor Vehicles has deemed that the office in Laguna Hills, which is in my district, and serves approximately 500,000 residents from that portion of South County, is going to close. It closed last Friday, October 18th. And so I convened a group of bipartisan, bicameral members of the Orange County delegation to have a meeting with the director of DMV and say, please rethink this. Bottom line, their mind was made up. They did, DMV staff did recommend an alternative site at Mission Viejo, and the city council of Mission Viejo rejected that because the site DMV chose was across the street from a hospital, and they just felt that that's creating too much traffic impacts. And so the current location, the landlord, the owner, has told me, I went down to visit, that they would provide it below market lease. They would do whatever they needed to do to make improvements. They said publicly there was an ADA issue. I went in, the restrooms are fine, the curb is fine, plenty of seating. Anyway, they were determined to close this facility because they have shifted to online operations. But I don't know how you will get a vision exam online, or the new driver's license has to be done in person, and the driving test has to be done in person. But the alternative is San Clemente, which is about a third smaller than Laguna Hills, or Costa Mesa. So when you go to Costa Mesa, many people in Newport Beach go to Costa Mesa for their driving needs and car registration needs. It will be crowded. So just don't say I didn't warn you. But we tried. We tried. I actually said in our Zoom meeting with the director, isn't there a plan B? And there is no plan B. They're shutting it down. There's no layoff of those employees. They're all being dispersed to other DMV facilities. So that's happening. Now, the other of interest to the community, the update on the Balboa Island Ferry. As you all know, I introduced a bill to provide an extension from the 2025 deadline that the ferry must convert to zero-emission engines by December 31st, 2025. Mr. Beek was able to secure a grant for two of his three ferries, but there's no technology, there's no design. It's a big hill to climb. I don't know if he'll have those two ferries to comply by December 31st, 2025. I'm in conversations with CARB regularly. We're trying to work something out. I did have a bill. It was heard by the Assembly Transportation Committee. Two members of the other party voted no, but all the other party members actually laid off. It wasn't really a no, but they didn't want to take a position. I brought the chair of the Transportation Committee, Lori Wilson, Assemblymember Lori Wilson, down here in July. Many of you met with her. I have a good relationship with her. She wants to help work something out. The Speaker and the Governor have publicly said on any bill related to relaxing regulations related to zero emissions, there's no way forward. I'm not going to give up. We'll see what we can do. We've figured out Lori Wilson's working with me. I'm working with her. She's working with our staffs are working together to see if there is some way forward. But it's unfortunate. One other thing, I did get 10 bills signed by the governor. It takes two parties to do that, so I'm very pleased with my bipartisan, bicameral relationships. One that I've already heard from local law enforcement, my bill AB 1774, e-bike tuning kits. I didn't even know they existed until I heard this from law enforcement. These are tuning kits will no longer, as of January 1, be allowed to be bought and operate in the state of California, bought on Amazon. I guess you could apply these tuning kits, and that could increase the speed of the e-bike by 10 or 15 miles per hour. So they will be illegal. And the police chief of Huntington Beach just told me last week, he said, that's the greatest thing. That's the only enforcement tool that they have. So at least they could go after these tuning kits. So as I said, I did have 10 bills signed, and some of them are technical. The extension of the Newport Dunes lease to, I think, 66 years. That was at the request of the Board of Supervisors. Oh, this was a fun bill. We now have a state seashell, which is the black abalone. So it was non-controversial. However, I didn't realize how significant it was until I was at the Kelp Festival. I don't know if any of you have attended the Kelp Festival in Laguna Beach. And the ceremony was opened by a member of the tribe, the native tribe that is from Laguna Beach area. She was using a black abalone shell to perform this spiritual ceremony to open up the Kelp Festival. And then when I came up after her and announced that among other things, that I had just authored, and this bill at that time was sitting on the governor's desk, that's the black abalone shell. It is sacred, and it's endangered, and it's sacred to Native Americans. And she cried. She was very emotional that I would do this for something that's so important to the Indian and the Native American tribal community. So I was very happy to do that. So I did the state seashell. Anytime you go to the state capitol, there will be a little display of the state seashell and my name on it. So that'll be an accomplishment. Anyway, we're getting ready. My staff is getting ready now for my next legislative session that begins in January, assuming I will be there, and learned a lot in this session of how to get things done. Relationships are key. My local government experience is one of the capabilities I treasure the most. Many people in the legislature, both parties, both houses, have never served in local government, surprisingly. And it helps to know how the local government process works, and I'm a fierce advocate for local control. I still believe that's the best answer to a lot of our problems. But I'm pleased to present to you. If you had any questions, I'm happy to answer, but I'm honored to serve you all and serve the people of Newport Beach. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on one second, Councilmember Avery.
What about introducing a bill that would mandate every time you bring a law forward, and then any law needs to go? So
And too, like
start with the most inconsequential and work your way up to something more meaningful in terms of, not filling the law basket so full.
So you're saying with every law they have to eliminate 2 laws,
Sure, at
something
least.
like that? I think it's a great idea. Obviously, everybody likes to. There used to be a limit. I think there still is a limit, 25 bills per legislator, and some people do 50. Senator Wiener, who has done a lot of the housing legislation, he does about 50, 45 to 50. Too many. And actually, many of the other party thinks they're too many, but nobody wants to be the first to cut it back. I've even suggested authoring a bill to limit the total number of bills, and people say, Diana's never going to go anywhere. So it is what it is. We try to simplify it. I will quote Jerry Brown wherever I can, that we have too many laws and we don't need a law to solve every problem. But I encourage people who are listening, if they're members of organizations that are involved in legislation in Sacramento, it's really, really important to do one of 2 things. Write a letter. It gets public record. It's important. Your opinion, your letters count. Or even better, come up and testify. When real people testify, it is very effective. And especially on business issues, local government issues, the voice needs to be heard. So I encourage that to everyone. Come to Sacramento and testify. People will listen, and it may make a difference. So thank you.
Oh,
All right.
one more. Yep, Councilmember Grant.
Yes.
Just quickly, I wanted to say thank you, Diane. Obviously, we are so grateful to have you here in our community. It's such an immense privilege and honor to have our assembly member right here with us. So you have eyes on and your boots on the ground right here in our city daily, at least now when you're not in session, and every week when you're not in session, at least a couple days. And so we benefit from all the work that you're doing, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I should recognize my district director. Where is Kristen? Many of you know Kristen, and Janelle. Is Janelle still here? Janelle over here, my field rep. Always feel free to reach out to either one, because we are responsive, and we take pride in that. And my office gets about 200 letters a week. People just dealing with the state of California on how to solve a problem. And so every legislative office has to respond to constituent requests. And we do that pretty well. And I'm very proud of that. So, and they're hardworking and try to get all around the 9 cities on a regular basis. So I appreciate your time. Good luck. And I think about Newport Beach all the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Madam Clerk.
Public comments are invited on agenda and non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
All right. Do we have any public comments?
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. It's very difficult to predict what might be said in the council announcements that are coming up next on the city council agenda, but there are 2 things I will be listening for. The first of them, I'm wondering if there's going to be any explanation of why the city aviation committee meeting that was supposed to happen last night got canceled. That committee used to meet monthly, and then it was bad enough when it went to quarterly meetings, and now even the quarterly meetings are being canceled. And it was especially disappointing because the John Wayne Airport, who does by state requirement hold a quarterly noise meeting, at their last meeting said we would hear a very interesting presentation at the city meeting about the impact of variation in altitude on noise. And now I guess we have to wait until next year to hear that presentation. The second announcement I'm wondering if we're going to hear about is whether there will be one of the elusive Coffee with the Mayor events tomorrow morning. And I'm using the word elusive because on Friday I saw an announcement about it in Tom Johnson's Stew News. And then this morning I tried to verify that, and the announcement had disappeared. So I am wondering if that's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Kobayashi, and I live in Newport Beach, and I think that saying thank you is really important. So I want to say thank you to the city staff, to the city council, and to the Newport Beach Police Department, and I just want to share a little story with you. I'm an amateur iPhone photographer, and I often go down to the Newport Pier. And I went down this last Sunday morning on my way back home from the airport about 7:30. And this is what I saw. A lot of older guys surfing. The waves were about that big. Guys and gals fishing on the pier. Locals walking their dogs. Crews clearing out equipment from the volleyball tournament. For the first time since I started going to the pier to take pictures, which is my hobby I started during the pandemic, you know what I didn't see? Not one tent, not one sleeping bag, not one terrifying person that I had to avoid. So this is the thank you. Keep up the great work. Keep at it on the peninsula, the Civic Center area, and the flower streets, which need attention. Keep your foot on the gas and don't let up. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. All right, we'll bring it back up. I don't know how elusive coffee is with me, but if you would like to have coffee with me, I'm going to be at Hotcakes tomorrow at 9 a.m. So it'll be fun. I don't move very quickly, so I can't be very elusive. So
Is the coffee free in the pancakes?
I mean, no. Shop local, Eric. Shop local.
Scones.
I feel like that's Costa Mesa well, but that's okay.
It is not Costa Mesa. It is very much Newport. All right. This is going off the rails. All right, we're going to go ahead and move into city council announcements and oral reports from city council on committee activities. Councilmember Blum.
No, not my style, but thank you.
Councilmember Avery.
I attended the administration committee meeting for the OC Sand District last week, and tomorrow night I'm attending the full board meeting, and I'm going to miss being on that committee, and Mr. Wagon is going to replace me, and it's just an outstanding organization that serves the public really, really well, and so many facets of it. So enjoy. Thank you.
Councilmember Wagon.
Yeah, thank you for your service on that. It's a lot of commitment and a lot of time. It's 6:30, right? On Wednesday, the fourth Wednesday of the month, and you've been attending those regularly. So I in my 2 years on this council, have been asked once to attend as your alternate. So the fact that you are a regular attendee of that, I think it's greatly appreciated, and our city should be thankful for your service on that. I just have a brief announcement. My mentee from Newport Harbor High School, Cooper Holland, is in the back row there, but he's learning a lot of stuff, and it's fun to be a mentor in my alma mater at Newport Harbor High School. So I encourage my colleagues, and I know the Mayor O'Neill and Councilmember Avery have both served as mentors in the past, and I know that every year there's an opening, so our whole council could do it if they want to, and I think some of our staff also participates in that. So it's a great program, and I appreciate some of our department heads that got to meet Cooper, and we're learning a lot of stuff along the way, so I appreciate him being involved.
All right. Councilmember Grant.
Thank you. I have a few things. I wanted to acknowledge the Corona Del Mar meet and greet that happened last weekend. It was a wonderful community event sponsored by the Corona Del Mar Chamber of Commerce, and the highlight was a pie contest where residents were able to submit a pie, and even though she's not here, Lauren Kleiman was the pie contest judge, and that's good because she can eat a lot of pie, unlike other people. I also want to acknowledge the wonderful weekend we've had this last weekend and ongoing with the Newport Beach Film Festival, which opened on Thursday, October 17th. There's still so much to see from the festival. There's events and films and programs all over town between now and the end of the day on Thursday. You can go to newportbeachfilmfest.com and get tickets or find out about a lot of free events. And I would just mention my personal favorite was Newport and Me, which was the life story of our very own Seymour Beek, whose family founded the Balboa Island Ferry over 100 years ago. It's a very moving film, and just so much history about the city of Newport Beach and about all the things that we love in the city. They added a second showing because the first one sold out. So you can see it on Thursday, October 24th at the lot at 5:30, and you have to go on the newportbeachfilmfest.com website to get tickets to that. I'll also mention that it was filmed by one of our very own, which is Ed Olin, who used to be the photographer for the city. Now he works for Visit Newport Beach, and he edited and he filmed and edited it. He took all the film and did the oral histories and edited it. It's spectacular, and bravo to Ed Olin. I really appreciate all the work that he put into that to, save the history of our city. It's a wonderful thing. And then finally, about Assemblymember Diane Dixon, who is working in our city all the time. Yesterday, she had a senior scam prevention presentation at Oasis Senior Center. Was very highly attended. Almost 100 people packed into one room. They had to move the room, and it was a real benefit to our community to have that information provided to our seniors, who are the #1 target of scams across the nation. So that was an important opportunity. Just want to announce a few things. On Thursday, November 14th, from 6 to 8, we have the first of our community workshops for the general plan's recreation and natural resources elements. I know a lot of people in the community are interested in the general plan and its update, so you can go on our website and find out more about that, but it's Thursday, November 14th from 6 to 8. Also, we have 2 Halloween announcements. One is on October 26th from 3 to 6 at Mariners Park. We've got the annual Halloween Spooktacular by our recreation department. I'm judging with, I think, Councilmember Wygant, I don't know who else, the costume contest, but there's all kinds of games and bounce houses and a really, really scary haunted house. So everybody should take their families down to Mariners Park on October 26th. And then just all week, October 24th through the 30th, there's a full week of Halloween fun at the Central Library. There's craft stories. Go to the library website for details. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I will simply congratulate Mayor Pro Tem Stapleton on his wedding over the weekend. And then also mention, because this is time for committee activities, just mention we have a subcommittee of Councilmember Avery, Councilmember Weigand, and me. We have been kind of working through the discussions about the upcoming contract negotiations with Visit Newport Beach. At the next council meeting, we're going to be bringing back terms that the subcommittee finds acceptable, and also Visit Newport Beach finds acceptable. So if the full council, or at least a majority of them, find them acceptable, great. So I just wanted to give a heads up that that was coming to the next meeting, so that we had a little bit of sunlight on that one. All right. Now we're moving into matters which council members have asked to be placed on a future agenda. It's a non-discussion item. The only one is consider relocating the historic city seal to City Hall, brought by Councilmember Weigand. If you are interested in bringing this back for consideration, please raise your hand.
It's 5-0.
All right. Madam Clerk.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 18. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
All right. I'll note a couple things. Number one, the amendment, there's some amendments to the minutes, and also item number, it's 11. Yeah, item number 11, we have the modified staff recommendation in our packets up here and then at the door for the contract itself. All right, moving forward. Councilmember Blom, do you have any items to pull or any other notations?
Nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Avery?
I have none.
Councilmember Weigand?
I do not.
Councilmember Grant?
None.
I will note a recusal on item number 6. So I will make the motion. I move the staff recommendations in the consent calendar with the amendments of item number 1, the modification of the staff recommendation, and the contract in item number 11, and then a recusal from the mayor on number 6. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Blom. Do I have public comment on this consent calendar?
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, my name again is Jim Mosher. And like many other things, a city government is made up of many little parts that have to fit together for it to work. And one of those parts is agenda item 9, which is your approval of a revision in how trash is picked up from city facilities. And the gist of the item is we're changing to a 3 waste stream system, so that there will be at each facility 3 bins for CR&R to pick up, much as they do for curbside residential service. And that is great, but it raises the question of how the material coming out of the facilities is going to get into those 3 bins. So I'm just curious, and I don't know if you are, if that means, as I told the library board last night, that maybe all rooms, including this one with its trash bins in the back, are going to have to get 3 bins and people put their trash in the proper bin? Or are we going to count on the janitors to sort the trash and put it into the proper receptacles? However it's done, there's going to be some expense involved in that, and I'm just curious how it's going to happen and how much it will cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Adam Leverins, regarding consent item 17, the City Finance Department reports an unrestricted general fund operating surplus of $10.8 million projected for fiscal year 2023-2024, and is recommending that the surplus be allocated to infrastructure projects or neighborhood capital improvements. I'm just wondering if it's possible to not allocate that and have it sit in case a need arises where it can be directed more quickly to where it would need to go. And I'm not a real budget knowledgeable person, but that just seems like it might be a good idea to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? All right, seeing none. I just note briefly, if for some reason it's technically part of the general fund and a separate fund. So in theory, if the council needed to reallocate it, they would be able to do so. But we are looking at a lot of capital improvements coming down the pike, so we'll see. All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance titles for items 3 through 6. Ordinance 2024-24, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach approving the Second Amendment to Development Agreement DA 2012-3 for Uptown Newport Plan Committee located at 4311 Jamboree Road. Ordinance 2024-5, amending Section 15.2.85, addition of Section 105.3.3.1 of Chapter 15.2 Administrative Code of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to update administrative procedures for the handling of permit deposits and fees associated with waste generated from construction projects having a valuation over $100,000 or that result in the complete demolition of a structure. Ordinance 2024-27, amending Title 21 Local Coastal Program Implementation Plan of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to change the zoning district from commercial neighborhood to 2-unit residential and to amend setback map S2B, which is Balboa Peninsula, to remove a front setback designation abutting the side property line for the property located at 3014 Balboa Boulevard, and Ordinance 2024-27, amending Title 21 Local Coastal Program Implementation Plan to change the development limit specified for Bay Island from 23 dwelling units to a maximum of 25 dwelling units.
All right, go ahead and vote again, please.
The motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Well read. Thank you. All right. So with no items removed from the consent calendar, we're going to move into the public hearing, which is item number 19. Does anyone require a staff report? I do not either. It was a good written report. All right. Any questions before we go to public comment? All right. Do we have any public comment on item number 19?
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier, and the item before you is some revisions to our city code having to do with the construction of accessory dwelling units. Some similar revisions were in the past added to our zoning code, and this is making similar revisions to our local coastal program, which kind of mirrors that code. The problem with all of this is that the state regulations on accessory dwelling units are continually changing. So by the time the changes made to the zoning code were presented to the Coastal Commission, they were already out of date, and the changes now that they have approved for you to make will themselves become out of date on January 1st. And so this really seems kind of like an example, especially because the city staff does a very good job of preparing brochures that explain the state law. Rather than copying the state law, it would seem like maybe our ordinance should just say we defer to the state law with these exceptions, and just state the few exceptions that we make that probably won't be changing as rapidly as the overall way the accessory dwelling unit enforcement works. Although we're not doing that, I can again make one suggestion, which I think I've made before to the Planning Commission, of something I think we probably have the authority to define in our code, but because of this approach of trying to repeat the entire code, we're not focusing on those things. If you look in the summary table, which is on page 69 of the agenda packet of the ordinance that was presented to the Planning Commission, I think. There's cases where no parking is required with an accessory dwelling unit, and one of the rules that allows that is if the unit is within 1 block of a car sharing vehicle. I don't know how many car sharing vehicles we have in Newport Beach, but the term one block is not defined in the state code. And I think we would have the opportunity to explain what one block means so that there wouldn't be a dispute about that. That would be a useful variation on the state code that we could make. And I think we're not focusing on those little things because we're trying to copy the whole thing. And I think that more appropriately should just be in the brochures that they hand out explaining how it works. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this one? All right. Appreciate the work on this one. Good example of how long it takes to get through the bureaucracy sometimes on our friends at the Coastal Commission, but we're here, so appreciate the work on this one. I'm going to go ahead and move staff's recommendation. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Blom.
Prior to reading the vote, I will read the ordinance title for ordinance 2024-28, an ordinance of the City Council of City of Newport Beach adopting local coastal program amendment LC 2021-3 as modified by the California Coastal Commission to amend Title 21 Local Coastal Program Implementation Plan of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to implement Council Policy K4, reducing the barriers to the creation of housing and new state law requirements relating to accessory dwelling units. The motion carries 5-0. It's just not showing.
Got it. Okay. All right. We're going to now move into item number 20, a resolution concerning Collins Island Bridge replacement. I see that you have a prepared staff report, so go ahead.
All right. Jim Houlihan with Public Works. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer. Good afternoon, Council, Mayor O'Neill. And with me today is Bob Stein, the Assistant City Engineer. Today, as you just mentioned, this is the, we're looking to adopt the mitigated neg deck on the bridge development, as well as move forward with final design. Bob's going to walk through some of our slides discussing some of the history and then get into where we are with the concept and the environmental section of the development of this bridge.
Mayor O'Neill, council members, our consultant, Michael Baker International, has prepared the concept design drawings for the bridge replacement project, as well as done the CEQA investigation and the public outreach for the mitigated negative deck. And we believe now that the council is in a position to adopt the mitigated negative deck and provide us direction to proceed with the final drawings. Next slide, please. Okay, good. So Collins Island Bridge connects Balboa Island with Collins Island. Collins Island is a private island, and in 1953 they built the bridge as part of a private improvement project, and in 1959 the city took over ownership of the bridge. In our archives, I found this photo of a pedestrian bridge that existed, must have been built in the late 30s or in the 40s, to connect Balboa Island to Collins Island Bridge, and that was at the time that the island was owned by James Cagney. This is a recent picture on the left that shows the existing bridge. It's a single lane road, and in the background toward Collins Island you can see a guard gate that no longer is in existence or operating. On the right side, you can see the existing bridge from the side, and you'll note that the east and west abutments have these concrete sheet piles. So those were built in the 50s. They've been performing well, but they're not founded very deeply. The deepest one is only 12 feet. Caltrans did an inspection last year and characterized the structure as minimum tolerable. So we're clearly on track for coming up with a new design. Let me point out a few things here before I get into some of the details. The top of the coping of the bridge is at elevation 9, and then note over at 1 Collins Avenue, they've built a barrier that goes up to 10.9 feet, about 2 feet higher, and the 10.9 feet is the new city standard for future flood protection. And then finally, let me also note that we have an open railing here on the existing bridge. Knowing we have potential for sea level rise, that open railing will disappear in the future design. So here's an overview of what is encompassed in the project. We have the bridge replacement. We're going to have steel sheet piles constructed just outside the concrete sheet piles to provide additional geotechnical stabilization for the abutments on the east and west side. We're additionally going to be improving Park Avenue from the alley to the boardwalk to provide a smoother transition from Park Avenue to the bridge. And also we're proposing new seawalls outside the seawalls that are along the boardwalk. Those walls were built in the period from 1929 to 1935. They performed very well, but we're starting to see signs of distress. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute here, some of the details on that. And then finally, while it's not a part of this project, there will be a future stormwater pump station. And we are accommodating in our plans the location for that stormwater pump station, as well as a pipeline that will go through the seawall and into the bay. So this typical section shows the proposed bridge section. Even though the bridge span will increase from 31 feet to 31 feet from 20 feet, the actual bridge width is not changing that much. It's going to be 20 feet 6 inches, which accommodates a 13-foot 3-inch travel lane and a 4.5-foot sidewalk. The bridge deck elevation will increase about 1/4 foot. And then the biggest change perhaps is that rather than having an open railing, we're going to have a side barrier on each side of the bridge that will go to elevation 11 feet. So I know this is kind of a busy slide and I had to resort to the actual engineering drawings, but there's some important elements I wanted to highlight here. For the reconstruction of the bridge, the first step would be to remove the existing 20-foot long deck and then install the steel sheet piles outside the concrete sheet piles. And those sheet piles will be driven to a depth of -31 feet, significantly deeper than the -12 feet that the existing concrete sheet piles have. So that will bring it up to current building code. Then once those sheet piles are installed, there'll be 4 sheet piles installed within the abutment that will support the deck. And you can see that in the elevation here, these 2 24-inch piles. They'll be drilled and then concrete poured in place, and then the new 31-foot length deck will be placed on those piles. So those are the major elements of the bridge. We think it's a good concept, and we believe that Michael Baker is now in a good position to proceed with final construction drawings. So in addition to reconstructing the bridge, we want to look at installing steel sheet piles on the outside of the existing boardwalk, concrete sheet piles. They'll be founded to a depth of about -45 feet. And the reason for that is the existing concrete sheet piles, they're showing stress. One of the panels is actually tilted out a few inches. But the most important problem is that the steel tie rods that provide the lateral support to the upper part of the sheet piles, it's all deteriorated, it's all gone. So the lateral support is no longer there. So clearly these walls are over 70 years old, 80 years old, and so the proposal to put the new sheet piles on the outside is logical from a construction point of view, but also from an economic point of view. We do realize that there'll be a little bit of take of the mud flat within the bay, and so that's why we need to go to the Coastal Commission and have them think that through. We believe the project is self-mitigating because we can take out some of the ballast rock that's there to support the concrete wall, and that creates more of the mud flat, and that should be sufficient, we hope. While the city requirement for private development is a seawall of 11 feet high, staff is suggesting perhaps we do it at 10 feet, knowing that we can come back later and raise the seawall as appropriate. Let me also note that in our improvements for Park Avenue, to make the transition from Park Avenue to the bridge more smooth, we're going to have to raise the boardwalk in this area about a foot, and so that the people using the boardwalk will transition smoothly up to that 1 foot, additional foot, one elevation, and then translate down back to the original elevation on the south bank or north bank. This is what the sheet pile system will look similar to. This is Bay Island. It was sheet piles driven. Actually, when I say driven, they were actually vibrated in. And then a concrete coping was placed on top of the steel sheet piles. The top elevation of the Bay Island seawalls is 9 feet. Ours will be potentially 10 feet, so the coping will be thicker. So again, I think we have a good design concept, and we believe Michael Baker is ready to proceed to the next step with final design. And then this is my last slide before I hand over to Jim. Michael Baker has prepared the draft mitigated negative deck. It went out for public comment, sent to the state clearinghouse. Letters were sent out to the nearby residents within 300 feet. We did get a couple of relatively minor comments from Caltrans and from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Those comments and mitigation measures have been incorporated into the mitigated negative deck. The most important measures, we think, are regarding traffic management and noise control. These are clearly kind of obvious things that we need to address. You know, during the construction, we want to limit lane closures during peak travel time. We want flag people out there when we have heavy construction equipment moving. We want to establish dedicated truck routes. That was actually recommended by Caltrans. And we're looking at perhaps having parking for the construction workers off the island. And then for the construction noise mitigation plan, we'll require the contractor to have a noise disturbance coordinator who will have to respond to complaints, propose mitigations, and then we'll take a look at those. And this will be obvious things like requiring noise shielding equipment, not having idling equipment that's not working, maximize the distance between staging areas and the residential areas, and requiring electric air compressors, etc. So again, we think the mitigated negative deck is ready for adoption, and you have a resolution in front of you for that adoption.
Okay. Councilmember Avery.
So eventually the Balboa Island will receive the new height of the seawall all the way around?
I'll go ahead. So we have done an analysis with Anchor. They've done an analysis on the entire island and the little island. And they've come back with some priority areas of what needs to be addressed sooner than later. This is the number one area. This area and Grand Canal are the areas that would be the shorter term in the next 5 years. So we'll be eventually coming back with a plan to extend this even further all the way to the ferry and over to Emerald on the north side, and then the Grand Canal. That would be the first phase. Second phase would be the little island and some of the other deeper water areas, and then the third phase would be where we have beaches throughout the middle of the island on either side. That's over 15 years. That's the plan. 2039 would be the last project. The idea would be to get them up to 10 feet from the 9 today. And as Bob mentioned, the current requirement's 11 for private property. We don't have another bite at the apple on private property. When they get a permit and they're done, it's hard to get 1,000 people to raise their walls. We can come in and raise them incrementally as we need to. So that's why we're proposing something less. It's going to be painful enough getting all to accept that. But we're proposing to move forward with that 10-foot so that everyone sees what's happening and can understand over the next 15 years, that's the next increment. So we're already seeing that, the sea level, when we get high king tides, getting up closer to that 9 feet. If we hadn't raised it back in 2018, we'd constantly have problems coming over the wall. So this is the next step.
So when you talk, so this would be sheet piles that you would do?
Sheet piles now, because now we need to replace, we need something more structural. We can't just keep adding height to something that's doesn't have the full stability that we need for raising the wall.
So do you take out the existing seawalls and put in the sheet piles, or do you just put the sheet piles in front?
In front.
Yeah.
We would add it to the, it'd just be on the outside and they'd grout in between, and the old ones would stay in place.
Right.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot of challenges with access to docks, but we're working through that. And with this design, as we raise the boardwalk, everything's relative. We're raising the boardwalk by a foot, and we're raising the wall by a foot. So it's relative what they have today. The only difference is on the dock side, there'll need to be a step. But on the boardwalk side, it'll look just like it is today.
Right, and over time, the houses will be raised.
There's already a requirement as they install their homes. I think it's 9.5. Is there 9.5? Is their foundation now? So there's a requirement to be higher. And a lot of them are. So as we raise that boardwalk by a foot, we're really hitting the stairs up to their patio in a lot of cases. So that's the plan. And if we have a low lot, we'll put in the drainage that ties in so they don't have a big puddle. It'll tie into our drainage system that we'll be putting in the boardwalk. So that we anticipate that. So
It's a Dutch situation.
know it.
Yeah.
The island's low.
Thank you.
Councilmember Blum.
Thank you, Mayor. We're talking about the drainage piece and the pump station on Collins right now. So we're not trying to tie these two construction pieces together at the same time? Can you just elaborate that piece for me real quick?
So you mentioned Collins. On the
So the pump station we're doing underneath the bridge.
Yeah, on the island. Oh,
Correct.
we got away from that design.
We've moved to the three separate pump stations. We have no more drainage coming out underneath this bridge. Is that correct?
Correct. The original thought with bubbling out.
Yep.
Now we're smaller. We have more of them.
Yeah.
And we'll be implementing those. Possible, if we time it up right, it'll be built with this project in a few years. But
One of those
we're working on
bubbles
that.
is still coming up under the bridge, though, correct? One of the pump stations?
It's adjacent to
Out of the four we were doing, okay.
Yeah, it's adjacent.
All right, and so we will have the tie-ins necessary if necessary. That seems redundant, but okay. To tie into that if that plan moves forward.
That's correct.
Okay. I just don't like to do construction twice. So
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Grant.
Obviously, thank you for all the work on this, and obviously it's a huge benefit to the handful of residents on Collins Island, but it's a huge benefit to them, and then obviously the adjacent residences and businesses, out as it balloons out. And you mentioned that there was some community outreach. I'm just wondering, was there any point of concern by any of the residents, either on the island, Collins Island or Balboa Island, and this design, or they've seen it now, right?
So over the last few years, this is, I think, our original. When did we start this? 2020-ish. We've been working on this for a long time, and things have morphed and changed, and we've added the seawalls. It was the bridge. It had different. We're working, as Councilmember Blum had mentioned about the drainage. We were trying to massage how we were going to work with the drainage part of it, and I think we've come up with a good solution. But it's been presented to the community. Specifically, those owners we didn't hold a meeting for 4 people. We didn't do that. We held meetings at the Beak Center, at the fire station over the last 4 years, an annual meeting, if not a few more. This is one of the projects we've talked about. When we sent this out in August for public comment, it went specifically to all of those residents within 300 or 500 feet to provide their feedback. I know that how that goes sometimes. People see something and don't know even if it relates to them, or they're absentee. So may or may not have had a chance to get back to us. It's going to take, as you see the schedule I just put up, it's going to take a while. We're going to have an opportunity to talk to those individuals, and specifically, how do we work with you on your patios, on your docks, and all of that, and how this will work. So we'll have more opportunity with these specific residents. We've talked to a few of the folks that live on the Collins Island. There's only a few, and they've been engaged. And then the gentleman who was building One Collins as well, he's been very involved and even wants to get more involved on the architecture beautification side of it. We'll have some more discussion about that. But
Okay, good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I would expect with such a handful of people
Yeah.
that are genuinely affected on a daily basis by this, that they would have some sort of, ebb and flow of information from you and want to be involved in the process, more so than other projects where like hundreds and thousands of people are involved. But I'm glad to see that we're going to continue with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Blum.
All right, one last piece. The access plan. What is the access plan currently when we tear down this bridge?
So I know that Michael Baker has come up with some phasing concepts. Again, they haven't even started final design. That's what we're looking for.
Sure.
So one of the thoughts is a pedestrian bridge. So, and they've also, another concept is to phase it where the sidewalk portion remains. They demo half the bridge, build half the bridge, swap. It's going to be tricky to do that, but it's maybe a temporary pedestrian bridge, sort of like the one that we had in 1930s,
Sure, and I'm all for those pieces. I think the parking is the number one issue we have down there. So, how do we mitigate the issue that we'll inevitably have, and how do we make this work? But
So we've been obviously doing a lot of parking mitigation lately with undergrounding and concrete in the alleys, and
so we're
we know how to
mainly
do it.
starting on the EIR piece, right? And we're going to move forward from there. So that works great for me.
This is the
Perfect.
culmination of that.
All right. I'll go out to public comment on this item now.
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, I think you know my name is Jim Mosier. I thought there were maybe two more slides, but
There's a couple.
in any event, if you want public comment at this point, my comment number one is the slide that we ended with, was showing that you're about to take an action which will authorize investing another $700 and something $1,000 in the final design, $711,000. And I'm just curious because this will require a permit issued by the Coastal Commission for this because much of the construction is over tidelands. Do we have preliminary indications from them that they are happy also with the concept, not just for the seawall, but also for the bridge design, so that we don't invest in something that has to be redesigned because it's not what they would be looking for. And then second, as to the resolution, which you're being asked to approve, I notice it says that you all thoroughly read the mitigated negative declaration item, which you have to download separately. I think quite a few pages to it. And you also read the comment letters and found appropriate the city's response to those. I trust that you've done all of that. I didn't read all of it, but because I'm on the GPAC noise committee, but speaking now as an individual, I was interested in the noise part of it. And I noticed the consultant for the mitigative negative declaration did take 2 noise readings at this location, one on Collins Island and one on Balboa Island. I expected airport noise to be one of the dominant noise sources there, which I've always been curious about this. I know at town halls on Balboa Island, it's quite prominent. So I was surprised, actually disappointed, because they only took 2 samples for 10 minutes. And one of the 10-minute samples, when there was a big plane going over, had a 4-minute gap in it when the plane was going over. So I still don't know what that is about. And then the other thing that was very interesting to me, because I never thought about it before, I saw some of the noise mitigation as because of concern. Not that noise impacts the residents, but the noise from the pile driving impacts the fish in the bay. And if it's actually loud enough, not only can scare the fish, but can actually kill them. And I was not aware of that, and it's not addressed in our general plan currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Adam Leverance, and I would just like to know, if possible, if there's a life expectancy or mean time between failure for steel sheet piles. Thank you.
Thank you. Question on the, it's a good point by Jim. Given the amount of money, where are we in terms of talking this out with Coastal to figure out the direction?
So Michael Baker has done considerable outreach to the Coastal Commission, and as you know, they like often to keep their cards very close to their chests. So the application is going in. We're going to use that as a springboard to try to induce them to be a little more voluble about what their opinions are. So it's a stepwise process here. We don't want to get too far ahead, but at the same time, we feel that the options are rather limited, and so we think that the Coastal Commission, all in all, has been more and more reasonable over the years. They have been out to Balboa Island 4 or 5 years ago, and we proposed these different options for the seawall. So I think that Mr. Mosier is correct that we do want to be in sync with them, but at the same time, we feel confident at this point that we have enough now to move forward in a methodical way.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So let's go ahead and Councilmember Blom has made a motion to approve staff recommendation. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Grant. Let's go ahead and vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
All right. Madam Clerk.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
All right. Seeing no such motion, we're going to move into our adjournment tonight. Councilmember Weigand and I have both asked to place on the adjournment for tonight in memory of Spelt Pedar Mirovic, which everyone who knew him called Pete. And I'm just going to, typically we read an obituary on this one. I'm just going to talk about Pete for a second because anyone who went and saw Mario's Citizen of the Year speech knows a lot about Pete and got to hear his story. And those of us who were able to attend his memorial yesterday at Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which was a beautiful service, also got to learn a lot more about Pete. And so, he's kind of an American dream. He was born in communist Yugoslavia, which now is Croatia. And if you knew Pete, you knew darn well that anytime Croatia was playing anything, literally anything, he was rooting for them, and World Cup games especially. And so he was born there, was drafted in the army, and then was able to escape the communist regime, but not before making sure that he had taken care of his parents financially. He was able to escape to Paris and then was sponsored over to the United States, where he actually ended up in Cleveland. And within a very short period of time, he was able to, I believe I learned yesterday, that he actually ended up leading what was it called? The Croatian Social Club. He was a very personable guy, and while he was there, he met his wife, Rosie. They eventually made their way to Los Angeles area, and then made their way over to Anaheim, where they had children, and then locally here in Newport Beach, think a lot of folks know his son Mario, and Pete was pretty much always here in Newport. He was here spending time because he was really proud of the entrepreneurship that he instilled in his children. Pete was an entrepreneur. I mean, he was a person's person, and just enjoyed being around others. And anytime you were around Pete, you knew darn well that that's what it was. That's who you were getting. He's going to be missed a lot, not just by his family, but by the community as well. And so my heart goes out to the Marovic family, all of them, his wife, his kids, his grandchildren, and yesterday was truly a celebration of life because this was a life worth celebrating. So on that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.